Hey everybody, this is Lisa Harper, and you're listening to the Not Ready Yet, Curating Conversations for the Aging Journey podcast. This is the show that changes the conversations we have with our loved ones about aging and life decisions. Let's have more honest conversations where we speak the quiet parts out loud. Today's conversation is about living with less and why letting go can feel so emotional, especially during life transitions. I am honored to welcome Kathy Vines to the podcast. Kathy is a certified professional organizer and the owner of Clever Girl Organizing based in Melrose, Massachusetts. Since 2013, she helped people both in person and virtually untangle their relationship with stuff and create simple systems that actually work in real life. Her expertise has been featured in the Boston Globe, the Washington Post, Better Homes and Gardens, and Real Simple. She's even appeared on Inside Edition in a segment that's been viewed more than 2.7 million times. Kathy is also the author of Clever Girl's Guide to Living with Less. Break free from your stuff, even when your head and heart get in the way. In today's episode, we're talking about why it's so hard to part with our belongings and how to begin gently, without guilt, overwhelm, and especially when you've tried before and felt stuck. This is hopefully going to give you some inspiration at the beginning of the year to start again. So Kathy, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with your very important audience, which I happen to be a member of.
Yes, the adult kids out there listening. So what inspired you to get into this, helping people deal with their belongings? It gets very personal very quick. How did this become your story? How did you come to write the book?
Well, writing the book came from realizing that I was having very similar conversations over and over again with my clients. So I started my business in 2013, and honestly, I had learned about professional organizing maybe 10 years earlier. I was one of those people who watched Clean Sweep on TLC with Peter Walsh and was instantly entranced by the fact that this could be somebody's job. This could be my job, right? This. I already do this with people and always have, like helping people think, like, what are you doing here? Why are you keeping this? What's really important to you? And kind of put that in the back of my head for a while. And then in my early 40s, I found myself gleefully laid off from my 20-year career in human resources. And I thought, if not now, when? And so I started. And in my first few years, I really found that I was struck by the psychology that was really going on so much more often than just like, hey, what's the right kind of box to put in the pantry? And it was really helping people understand their attachments. And I was hearing very similar reasons over and over again why somebody would kind of say, gee, I know I should get rid of this, but, all of this talk that came out. And so what started out as even some things that I had blogged about eventually became the book. And Clever Girl's Guide to Living with Less is really about the psychological and emotional barriers to letting things go. So the first half is maybe the 8 most common ones I was running into. I might need it someday. I paid good money for this, but this is still good, right? All of those things. Oh, I'd feel guilty, right? All of these things I kept hearing over and over again. And then the second half of the book applies your learnings about, oh, wait, which one was me? Which ones were me? And where am I struggling with? So the second half of the book focuses on projects I was working with people on a lot. Books, paper, clothes, memorabilia, photos, right? These areas that people really can get stuck, even though they know and they understand truly they need to work through their collections because it's standing in their way of living the life they want to live in their home.
And that could be so frustrating when you know you want to get to a better place, but you have no idea how to even begin. I think we feel it with our stuff. Sometimes we feel it if we've, if our health, maybe something has been going on in our life and we've had to let that go a bit. And then it's like all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, how did this happen? How did I get here? Right. But that's the moment of change, I think, that somebody goes, okay, I need to do something differently. So what have you found? You talked about some categories that you speak of in the book, and I just wanted to, for those of you on YouTube, visual people, you can see I have highlighted it. I had to stop myself because I had some things to get done on my to-do list as I was reading through here. And I would get to, especially the paperwork side, I was like, oh, I need to go tackle my files and all of that stuff right now. And I had to rein it in. I'm like, I'll put that on a list for another day because I need to get some things done. But it really motivated me to like immediately put the book down and go start something. So I think that says something about how it's written too, that I immediately wanted to take action. So I hope others do too.
I'm glad to hear that.
You've worked with so many families and people throughout the years. Walk us through some of those barriers to even making the call to you.
Yeah. And I do think I get people who are in either current state of concern or they're projecting on future state, right? So I'll get people who are saying, we need to move, we're going to move, but I can't start that work, so I'm stuck here, right? So it's not getting in the way of how they're living today, but they can see it's standing in their way of where they want to go. So I'll get a variety of people in different statuses coming my way looking for help. I would say, first of all, for the most part, I'm hearing from women, right? So I'm hearing from women, and sometimes that comes with a sense of personal failure. I should be good at this. I grew up in a house that was, my mother was good at this. Why am I not good at this? Why am I so overwhelmed? I want to be a better role model for my child, right? I'm hearing a lot of personal identity and shoulds and real self-defeatist language for somebody to say, not only do I need somebody else's help, I need to pay for somebody else's help, and ... they need to come in my house, which I'm already feeling embarrassed about. Now, sometimes it isn't that dire a situation sometimes, and I really found this happened through the pandemic and after, when people were spending so much time in their house, right? And they were saying, I can't even see my home with fresh eyes anymore. I need somebody else to come in who spends all their time looking at other people's problems and other people's homes. I need them to come in and saying, what am I missing here? Like, how can I live better in here? What's hanging me up? What's another way to do this? What are better ways for us to resolve conflict in the house? My husband and I are fighting. My kids don't follow through. All the different things that can come up with the family dynamics of being in a home that just isn't working at the top of its capability.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you get everybody on board? Like, where do you even start? You have to understand your why, right? With the individual items. What are some, you talked earlier about paperwork. Um, what was the photos? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Is there any like high level tips you could help people, like, as far as if they've identified we have way more memorabilia, and maybe sometimes it's not even theirs, right? It may be something that has been passed along, and we have an obligation that's our connection to that person. And be it sitting in a garage in a bin, never to be visited unless there's talk of a garage sale. Like, I mean, where do we start? I mean, it's so much. It really is overwhelming. I think I'm speaking personally here too, but to give clarity, these are some big struggles.
And I think I love that you talked about memorabilia as being, there's two different kinds. There's ours and somebody else's that we now own, right? Okay, I guess their memories are mine now. And there's a very different approach to shepherding it, or the obligation that we might feel and we might internalize when it's somebody else's memorabilia, right? So when we're talking about ours, I think you're right. There's often not a reason for us to go through it until a reason presents itself. I will say it's often going to be we're moving, or my basement had flooding and things got damaged and now I have to face it, right? Memorabilia is something we tend to never really look at or visit until there's a real reason to, like, oh, birthday's coming up. I want to go through. I want to go find that card. I remember that grandma sent me years ago. It'd be great to revisit that. Or we're having to deal with it. The memorabilia we're inheriting with somebody, sometimes the reason we're dealing with it is because it's coming into our home now for the first time. And where is this going to go? And I'm going to tell you, for a lot of people, the answer is the basement, the attic, the garage, until I'm ready. And if this is a recent loss, you're not ready. And if it's a further loss, well, it's been here this long. It's not in my way. Maybe it's fine to just stay there until I really have to deal with it. So I think that that's something to think about, is there's no inherent purpose inside memorabilia, yours or somebody else's, besides striking up memories and revisiting periods of time in our past, our accomplishments, our experiences, our travels, things that we discovered along the way and loved, but kind of are over now. So until we are free of our time and all the obligations on our time and our space and our energy for the things that we have to do, like paperwork, it's really hard to carve out time for memorabilia with a sense of urgency. So, like anything else that we say is important but not urgent, right? You know, the Eisenhower matrix is how do I make time on my calendar and say, I'm going to go through one box a week, a month, and say, my goal is to review what's in here. Do I know what's even in here? So that's first. It's like an inventory. But the second is, what is coming up for me as I'm looking at these? Am I stirred so deeply by emotions I can't imagine living without, that I don't think I'm going to be able to let go of things? Or is it, oh, this was really nice to revisit, but I can own less of this and still capture the feelings that I crave when revisiting memorabilia, right? So I had a client once who she had been a community theater actress, and she had every single playbill of every single show she'd been in, hundreds in her lifetime. And she was moving, right? So that was the thing. We're moving. We don't have space for all this. And so we talked about the pure essence of what was important about the playbills to her. And she was not ready to let go of them. But the interesting conversation was, well, what if we took the cover and the cash sheet and the set pages and took a slimmer part of it and put that into a binder? Because I don't think you really need the ads of, you know, what pizza place was having a coupon that week, right? There's so much filler in a Playbill magazine. And so when we were able to do that, we turned it into two binders that sit on a shelf instead
Oh,
of one enormous tote that nobody could move. And she's put a little note in the front to her kids saying, listen, when I die, let go of this. Nobody
oh,
needs to keep this, right? So some of that is also when we're dealing with memorabilia, when we're dealing with memorabilia we've inherited, how often are we saying, oh, I wish I knew who this was? I wish I knew what this was from. Mom never told me about this.
yeah.
When it comes to us devoid of context, it is clutter, right? And now we feel even more burdened to be like, well, what if somebody in her life comes by and asks, hey, do you happen to have that thing in your mom's stuff? So we get paralyzed because we're afraid of making a decision that's going to negatively impact somebody else's experience with us or experience with that person that we've
Yeah.
inherited those items with.
Like you say, like a future situation of them coming and asking for something. We tell ourselves these stories. I mean, what's the probability of that happening, right? And I love that you bring up that that's a beautiful way to display, right? Because those programs, those playbills are hidden somewhere. She knows they're there. Now they're being, you talk in the book about, you know, things should be presented in the way of like, this is your living museum. And so that is a beautiful way for her, like to have that constant visual reminder too. Even seeing those binders, she knows what's in there and that joy it probably gives her. And that's what this is about is like, you know, that obligation that we tie to things. It is a hard one, right? Especially if you've lost people and you now have their items. And like you talk about, it reminds me of in the book about pictures. Like when you're going through pictures, you know, it's somebody else's trip. It's somebody else's experience. That human, the person that your loved one may not even be in these pictures. If they are, those maybe, you know, you want to think longer on. But some of them, it's like, you know, if you had like a world traveler in your life and they passed and now you're like, I think this is Alaska or I don't know, it might be Iceland. I'm not sure anymore, you know? And I mean, that's a lot of burden for us to feel like we have to hold these so close. I love that you give permission. Like if the person's not in the picture, that you can sit and be proud of what their passions were and what their hobbies were, but they're not yours. And I
And I
thought that was so brilliant.
Oh, thank you. And I thought I think going through photos of a loved one, especially past loved one, I think there's two phases to it. Once is the initial review of like what's even here. And I know so many people, and we've done this in my family, where it's like, all right, let's get all the kids together, let's get all the cousins together and go through them together, have the laughs, have the fun, make fun of the outfits, do the experience of celebrating that person's life, right? And then there's the, all right, what are we keeping? Now I'm kind of I'm a little ruthless when it comes to photos around a couple of different points. And I will tell you, I am a photographer, and I was the first person in my family to have the camera attached to me all the time. And my first SLR, like I've always been the person that takes the pictures. And even I have gotten rid of, I went through a process where I got rid of more than half of my photos. Because why? Right? Think about the travels. Many of us of our age, we started taking pictures before the internet, and we thought, oh my gosh, it's the Washington Monument. When will I ever see it again? And now the answer is in 2 seconds if you go to the internet, right? So it's the animals in the zoo, it's the every single sunrise, it's all of these things that in the moment we said, oh my gosh, I want to capture this. But we don't revisit that capturing in the same way that it brings the same importance now. So sometimes it's really like that, the I kind of call them the common nouns. As you're going through your photos and like, oh, this is a raccoon we saw. This is a sunrise. This is a pretty boat we saw. When you see those things, like, okay, what makes this important for me to keep, right? And I say this, just because it's memorable doesn't mean it's important. And that can be a good distinction for people to say, oh yeah, I remember when we went on that trip that time. Okay, and why does keeping all of these photos feel important today and for your future life? So that can be a good way to go through your own photos, but also when you're looking at the ones you've inherited from somebody else. I know I look through pictures from my parents that, because of space in their apartment, their photos at my house, their photo albums, and I don't know lots and lots of people in them. I don't look at that as something I need to own past their time of being able to enjoy them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, when you talk about the way we used to take photos, just like, yeah, that was our reference point, that photo. And, we would ship off I remember going to Phase Drugs and shipping off the film and writing it out on an envelope and saying, I hope you come back to me. Because
And
you
we
were
got
just
doubles.
giving, yeah,
We got
that's what I was
doubles
going to
just in case
say.
there was a good one.
That's what I was going to say, is that then you got two. So it was automatic. You're just going to get doubles. It was like one for you and one to share, but not always did you share them and you just ended up with all the doubles. But that process too made it feel so important, that again, yeah, it is interesting to think about how it used to be and now how it is. We have the Kodak carousel little slides for days. We did have a traveler, my aunt, she just traveled and took pictures. And when she would come back, we would sit in her piano room and have like a presentation of their trip. And I feel like, like to carry that on, or at least like keeping it makes it that was important to me in some way. And it's like, this is helping me. Like I say, I'm going to be going back and referencing a lot of things to actually implement in my own life. But yeah, the memorabilia, like we were saying, even the passions you kind of reference, like some of these things are not our own. So I don't know, I feel like if you are in that place of, somebody's passed and you've received things, I think that, I don't want to say it's easier because it depends on the timing of everything. But when it's your own stuff and it's like concert tickets, and I know, I saw somebody post on one of your pages that they had taken, I think it was books on plants, like older vintage, and they made this beautiful collage that looked like it could be in a museum. And that's what you say is like, this should feel like a museum in your home. These are your things. And I just thought that was stunning. But, whatever you have, it's like, maybe give it a look. And if it really sparks that joy in your heart, but you only see it, once every 6 months or a year, or when you move, but man, like get that out, do something with it, have somebody help you with a project. Maybe you have a creative teen or a grandkid or something. When we're presented with something, a lot of us just end up taking it and we don't say no in the moment, and then we figure it out later, right? But then that happens over and over, and then we're also bringing in our own stuff. And it becomes, what am I surrounding myself with? So in the book, you talk about purposeful possession. Could you share, what does that mean? How is that a sense of living? Because that's a mindset change, right?
It is. And I talk about purposeful and purposeless. So we can give some language to things, right? So I'll give an example of, I was working with a client who, for whatever reason, kept acquiring like beach coolers, like those hard coolers that you'd bring to the beach with sandwiches and things. And they had a whole bunch of them. And just because they've collected them over the time, the idea of letting go of them was really difficult because they were still good. And we're like, you're right, but did you need five, right? Or have we just said, well, this item has value, this has a purpose, so therefore it should stay, right? It is still useful. It should stay. And what we're finding is when your home is full of things that are useful that you don't use, it's it's clutter and it's literally getting in your way physically and emotionally from how you want to live in your house and in your home. So the idea of purposeful possession is when I look at something, is it really clear to me why it's in my life, right? I tell people I like helping people understand what they own, why they own it, and where they keep the keepers. And this is the why they own it, right? Why, when you're already struggling with space in your home, when you're already struggling with finding things, when you're already replacing things because you've lost the first one, why are you making space for things that are useful but not part of your life? And that is a very different way of thinking of things because we often think around, well, I'll get rid of the things that I know I don't use, or that are broken, or that are stained, or that are torn. Oh, I'll get rid of the easy decisions. But if something is presented to us and they're like, well, this still is good, why would I get rid of something that's good? I already own it. Why would I get rid of it? And it's because we're looking at it from kind of the top down instead of the bottom up of what we're building in our life.
It's true. If something still functions, but you're not reaching for that one, so why have it? Why have the other four?
Yeah. Can I give
Yeah.
you another example from my
Oh,
life right now? So,
yeah.
I too have a podcast, so I have some good tech, and I've got this great microphone that I really like. So I'm going to tell you two things. One, I bought this microphone a while ago, many years ago, and then when I started my podcast, I'm like, oh, I think I need a better mic, so I bought a new one, and I don't like it. I don't like it as much. So I went back to the old one. I love it. What am I doing with the old mic, right? It's still a good mic. It was expensive, right? What am I doing with it? Because I already know my experience with it is this. I didn't like how things came out, but I'm still stuck because I'm like, oh, well, what if? What if this one breaks? What if I need to do something else? What if I want to have a different place for me to record and I want to keep that with it? At the core of it, I still know I don't like it. I still
Yeah.
know it's not my favorite. I still know I'm going for this one. So even the pros can struggle.
Yeah, no, and when you started doing all those what ifs, I had to laugh because then, you go through the stories we tell ourselves. There's guilt associated with some things, but then there's this future need, this future. I can't remember what the exact wording was, but the future use, the future desire, even someone else needing it. People used to joke with me, my purse is so big. They're like, what do you have? I'm like, well, do you need Kleenex? Might you need hand sanitizer? I might have a safety pin in there that you need. It was like all of these future needs, and most of them weren't even for me. It was like I carry this purse because, maybe half and half, 50% Lisa need, 50% someone else in my life might say, hey, I need a Kleenex. And so I have to laugh because that's something I do with clothing. When you were talking about that future voice, it's like, oh gosh, like I'm doing that a lot in a lot of these categories. It's that same reasoning for me. So when you went into your what if scenarios there, I was like, oh, yep, that's me.
Yeah, and I would say so the term I use in the book is future fear, right?
Okay.
And it's around the fear of what will happen in the future if a situation presents itself and I didn't have this thing. So right, if the book is about letting go of stuff we already own, it's well, what happens in the future if a scenario comes about and I needed it? And honestly, need could even be in quotes, right? It's like, oh, I had the perfect thing to wear to that, to that 80s party, but I got rid of it, right? It's not really a need, but we've invented a
Yeah.
usefulness to it. But I think, this other side of the big purse, I just kind of want to share a story. I worked with a school, a bunch of teachers. They were moving classrooms. It was a big day, and they had me to come in to talk about organizing for kids, organizing classroom, organizing their stuff. And I said, I was like, okay, raise your hand if you're the teacher who has a closet full of old margarine tubs just in case somebody else needs them. And the whole room laughs, and everybody looks at this one person, and she raising her hand. And I said, you know, what I often find with the people who have the big purse or have the extra gift closet or wherever that is they really have a sense of identity of being useful to others, of being a problem solver for others, for being resourceful. So we collect things that reinforce that identity of ourselves and that identity that we're very proud of, that reputation that people find us helpful and valuable because they know, oh, you know what? I bet Kathy has one of those in her purse. And so sometimes it's really tied to our identity, right? And what are we getting? What are we getting internally that's a reinforcement by holding on to some of our stuff that has nothing to do with the stuff itself?
Yeah, no, but that's really interesting. It's like, yeah, it's such a personality tie. And that's why I say so much of this is like, you have to be willing to have a bit of mindset reset if you're going to move forward and change things, right? Otherwise, you can put a lot of effort into, say it's the beginning of the year and everybody gets into that cleansing and organizing moment. And you can spend 2 days on your weekends this month, tackling things and getting it great. And then come June, you're not keeping up the system part of it and you're back to square one. So much of it is a mindset through reading your book that I'm already looking at things differently. And I know I call them heartstrings. Like when I look around and see things and I surround myself probably with more things than the average human. But it's like I see things and I just have that pull. So I'm very high on that level of keeping things around me that remind me of a happy time or remind me of a wonderful moment. And I can see that translates into, you don't want to let things go because maybe I'll forget about that moment. For our adult kids out there, there's a conversation most of us have to have. And this is if your parents are being proactive and they're saying, hey, do you want this? Or, hey, do you want this dining room table? Or that I know that we've kind of labeled just furniture, brown furniture, but can you give any advice to those listening out there that are like, these are some of the conversations that they're having with their parents and, wanting to be respectful. And that's what I say, all of this, that's why the podcast, right? Have conversations. We're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. We're not trying to create a divide and maybe even harm the relationship for a moment in time. Can you give some advice on what's the best way to handle some of these things that are being presented and you already know, you're like, yeah, we can't use that. And then they want me to take all of their stuff. Like, what's a balance?
And I think, we talk about brown furniture and people of a certain age. This probably conjures up like the Ethan Allen set from that got purchased in the 60s or 70s, and it's not anything you would find in a store today. Even many thrift stores will know that it's not going to sell. But so we use this as an example of the kind of furniture and style that our parents filled their home with. But let's remember a few things. Number one, it was what was popular at the time and what was selling, right? They did go into a store and say, this was the nicest set there. Of course, I'm going to have what's popular and nice. They spent a lot of money on it, right? These were expensive. And honestly, they were pretty well made, so they last. And those are values that our parents are still holding on to and attaching to their stuff, right? This was very popular and really, this was a great style. It was expensive and we worked really hard for that money and it was well built. Don't you want things in your life that are those things? They believe often that they're giving something with those values attached. And they believe that you share those same values and that it's represented in the same way as you look at those same items. Forget about I don't have room for dining room set. I don't have china and crystal, so why do I need a hutch? All of those different things that might come up in those conversations. So the first thing I always want to tell people is like, listen, meet your parents in this conversation, not with what you think about the item, but what you know or believe their attachment is, right? Saying, gosh, it really must have been a really big deal for you to have it. You must have been so proud when you guys brought this home. And think of the amazing holiday dinners we've had around this, right? For a lot of our families, our older families, they look at a table and they see Thanksgiving, and they see cousins, and they see life experiences that were born around this dining room. And for us, we're seeing, this doesn't fit in my house, this isn't my style, I already have a table, right? Like, we're not connected in that. So for the respectful conversation, I'm always hopeful it's getting to the having the parent kind of have the conversation about it, so that you can have the conversation with them about the same values, right? Like, well, this, we don't really have the same amount of cousins that in our family that we did growing up. So we don't have the same need, or our style is a little different, or how we use our dining room is different. And being able to say, Mom, I love my experiences around this table, but it's just not something that we're feeling that we're going to make space for in our home and our life, because we're building our new experiences with our style today. Maybe we can find another place for it. Maybe there's someone else who wants it, who could use it. But it's possible that this is something that's not going to have a home after the beautiful life it's had here, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. And that's so much better than we don't want it. We're all over the place now, scattered families. So probably the cousins aren't even in the same state, most likely. There's very few families that have cousins gathering on a weekly basis. Yeah, it's a hard one. When you're talking about something that takes up so much volume and space, things that are just large. So yeah, these bigger items, it's a lot easier. And that's how we accumulate all the memorabilia and the photos and things, because it's a lot easier to take boxes of those and put them somewhere versus the large furniture. Tell us what an exit strategy means. What does that mean in the decluttering world?
Yeah, I could talk about exit strategies all day, because I really do think
Okay.
it's the most important part of decluttering is I understand you've made a decision to let go of it. How is it leaving your house? How is it leaving your life? And until you have a vision and a strategy around that, things can linger. Things can linger indefinitely. And so, generically speaking, right, exit strategy is anything from trash, recycling, donate, give away for free, sell, repurpose into something else. That's kind of a modified exit strategy. I don't like it when somebody repurposes it into something that's equally useless. Right. So I'm always hesitant. I'm like, just because you did trash to treasure doesn't mean it's actually treasure. So it's these different ways that they're going to get out of your life. But even speaking more specifically, saying, all right, donation. Okay, I'll donate it. But you might have it in your head, like, I want to donate it directly to somebody I know who's going to use it, and they're going to value it and appreciate it, versus I'm going to donate it to, one of those larger places, a Save or something else. They're going to resell it, and that money is going to be used for something good. But for them, it's more of a fundraising effort rather than a direct use. Now, if you're someone whose values are really inclined to say, no, 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 I want to know it's going to the highest and best use of the person who's going to appreciate or need it the most, but you don't have that place in mind, or you do, but you don't have a way to get it there, you don't have an exit strategy, you have a dream. And so I really want to work with people to say, great, I love that you're getting rid of it. Where's it going next? How is it getting out of your life? For people who say, oh, I think I could sell it. Great. Where? How? Do you have access to that market? Do you know what you're doing? Is this eBay? Are you working with an estate sale? Is it an auction? Do you know that it has value? We are so stuck on that first answer of like, oh, I'm going to sell it. Well, until there's a strategy around making that happen, it's just a dream.
Okay. So there's there's a difference between the decision to get rid of something you've let go, you're ready, but now you're not, the next part is the how. How is it going to now exit your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can get stuck for people.
Oh yeah.
And I will, there are people who will say, that's a giveaway pile. It's been in that corner for a year. I don't really know what I'm doing with it yet, right? Okay, all you did was kind of shift your clutter from one
Yeah.
corner to from another.
And
And I
that's the
think,
worst too.
and I talk to people about values in conflict, right? So I've got one value that says I really want to live a better way in my home. I'm overwhelmed with the clutter. We're fighting. I hate cleaning. It's dusting, all these things. And I have this value for living differently in my life, and that's important to me. And then I have this other value of, well, I only want things to go if I know it's going to somebody who can really appreciate it, or I don't want it to go to a landfill. But I've tried to give it away for free, and I've tried to sell it, and I've tried to donate, and nobody wants it. Like, so now I've got these two values, and they're in conflict. And when we find ourselves in that situation, especially when we're talking about stuff, what it often leads to is just inaction, right? I can't resolve these conflicts for myself, so I'm just not going to take a step. And the
Yeah.
stuff stays.
You're in the moment of, I'm going to do something, but then it just becomes another pile in another part of the house. Are there any creative ideas for people? Here's a fun way to go about this, right? Because I think a lot of people don't think about this as fun. Is there anything you can add to say, hey, let's look at this differently and approach it differently?
Yeah, and if you're talking about exit strategies and make it fun, some of it is even that step before of the gathering or how am I going to get through things. So, uh, one of my favorite kind of decision making strategies is we call it friends, acquaintances, strangers, which was coined by Judith Kohlberg, who's a pioneer in my industry and a friend. And, I use the example of things like your black leggings or your coffee mugs or your Tupperware, right? Utilitarian things you can put together and say, all right, what are my friends? My friends are my favorites, right? You know which coffee mugs are your favorite. And what are my strangers? They're the ones, you know which ones you don't like. That like, all right, I guess if all the other ones are dirty, I guess I'll use this one, right? They're chipped, they're stained, whatever that is. And then the middle is they're like, oh, they're fine, the acquaintances. And right, being able to say, I'm looking at all of them. It's time to get rid of the strangers and it's time to pare down the acquaintances to my needs in life, right? And using strategies like that can help. But when I think about just the exits as well, one of the things I did was in my organizing business, I shifted from, I wasn't doing a lot of hands-on organizing much anymore. This is kind of, probably 2021 or so. I was doing so much more virtual and really focusing on other parts of my business. And so I had an everything is free yard sale because I had a lot of stuff in my house that I knew was good. And I wasn't going to spend, what's it going to cost me? Oh, I'm going to sell this for $6. I'm going to sell this for $4. My time is not worth selling lots of things at $5 a piece. So I had an everything is free yard sale. And so I set up tables and I put up 3 Venmo squares for where to donate a contribution to 3 different charities I was supporting. And I said, come pick up to 3 items and we'd love it if you made a donation to one of these 3 causes that aligns with your value. I got everything out of my house. People got amazing stuff. Some charities got some great money. It was
What a
super
win.
win.
Oh my gosh, I love all of that. Yes,
And
I
I,
love all of that.
yeah, and I think I've seen it done, where people will do it with families and they'll say, hey, listen, we're not hosting Christmas anymore. We're going to let go of all the Christmas decorations. Everything is up in the house. Before we pack up, please come and pick your favorites. Invite the family, invite the friends. And then, at the end of the day, the Christmas tree is gone, right? You can put everything out on the dining room table. We're not going to be entertaining the way we used to anymore. I've filled up my dining room table. Please come over, take a look at this. I have one of my clients who her husband was a painter and her husband had passed away and she had a niece who was buying her own house and really just focusing on DIY and saving money. She said, please come to my house and go through your uncle's stuff. Anything, he would be thrilled for you to have anything. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's that bringing new life to something with that relinquishing of ownership and knowing I don't need to own this anymore. This can have a life after me and I can give freely and know that someone else is going to get just as much value of it as I did on my first day with it.
Yeah, because most people love that feeling of gifting. That gifting of something to know that it's going to go on and it's going to serve that purpose in another family in another space. I just think that's beautiful. I just love the idea of the everything is free party. Because like you say, when you get down into the logistics of, oh, I'm going to do this on eBay or I'm going to put this on Marketplace. And you're like, what am I doing? Yeah, at least that's how I feel.
Yeah, and honestly, I needed my space
Yeah.
more than I needed the money for it, right? We
Yeah.
tend to think of value being very linear about am I getting money for it or not? But really, what am I getting back? I got a whole closet back. And it was a closet that quite frankly I needed because I was bringing in things storing from my parents in a move and being able to say things like I don't want to have to worry about what if something happens to me and somebody else has to go through all of my stuff. I don't want them to feel burdened about it.
Oh,
And that
yeah.
is a big part of this. I will get so often the client I get is again the woman who comes and says, I just had to clean out my mother's apartment. I don't want to do that to my kids. Help me do it in advance.
Yeah.
And being
Yeah.
able to process saying I want to let go of things or I want to decide where things are going to go. And sometimes they're bringing in their adult children as part of those conversations too, saying, listen, I'm not letting go of this just yet, but I want you to know when I die, I'd like you to have this and I want you to know the story behind it. That's, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's the best interaction that can happen
Yeah.
around evaluating stuff is, are we talking about why it was important? Are we talking about why it was valuable? Are we telling the stories? And then giving permission to that adult child to say, and honestly, if it doesn't work in your life, I understand, but I appreciated being able to tell you the story and share this with you.
Yeah, because without the story, that's where the value is. Without sharing that story, that's the connector, that's the bridge, right? If you don't know that, you might as well be seeing something on a shelf at the restore. Yeah, and I think that's where the disconnect is that the stories aren't being told. You know, you're making progress, you're giving things, you're sharing the stories, you're bringing back the life of the memory in the first place. Like that's what I'm hoping people get out of this is these moments that we can create over something that we've seen maybe this item. Why does that item sit next to their night table every night, and we don't even know the story? And so I think that that's just a beautiful way for somebody to relive those happy parts of their life too. Well, Kathy, is there anything here that we would be remiss to say if we didn't take this opportunity?
Really want to make sure, when I think about this, and this is my book, this is in my presentations, I say it all the time to people, be kinder to yourself than you are to your stuff. Right. And I think I'm so often working with people around whether that's permission sitting or forgiveness and saying, listen, I know where you are today is not what you imagined your life would feel like for yourself, and you're struggling. I want you to be kinder to yourself when you're thinking about making difficult decisions, and don't ever value the stuff more than your own happiness and sanity.
Our home is where we recover and where we recoup and where we restore. And if we're not finding that there, it's such an important part of, I think, just being balanced. I'm going to do the lightning round. So just fill in the blank at the end, okay?
Okay.
Less stuff equals more
Time.
The hardest thing to let go of is often
Sticky. Emotionally sticky.
Yeah. Yeah. Living with less creates space for
Possibility.
That's a wonderful thing. And we all want that, right? That's the beauty of hope. I have a quote. I always love my quotes. And, the beauty of tomorrow is that, the hope is there and there's always that new potential and that new possibility. We can restart anytime. And like, this is perfect at the beginning of the year. I so appreciate you coming and sharing all of your knowledge. Everybody, you can find Kathy's book called Clever Girl's Guide to Living with Less, Break Free from Your Stuff, even when your head and heart get in the way. These will all be in the show notes too. There'll be links for everyone. Share with us your podcast and any other resources you want everybody to know about.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes. I have a podcast for midlife women, think 40 to 60, helping women get unstuck. And it's called Surfing the Quicksand. And it's audio and video, and you can get on Spotify and Apple and YouTube. And I love bringing in women who are either kind of have some expertise in their field that matters to midlife women, whether that's their profession or their home, or of course talking about organizing and productivity, because that's my jam. But also their professional future, or caring for aging parents, or parenting, or health and menopause, all of those things. And then sometimes interviewing women who have made a shift in their life midlife to bring kind of new clarity to their professional purpose, just really as storytelling and modeling of bravery and possibility that other people, if they're feeling stuck, there may be another path for them.
Yeah, I fully believe those are all beautiful things, because I feel like we are not here to feel stuck. We have to move through things. Some things we feel uncomfortable sometimes, but we're not here to feel stuck. So I really I can't wait to dive into some things. I know personally, I have some new projects to attack and to delve into, but I'm looking forward to it now. So that's a change that you've created. So, well, Kathy, thank you so much. Everyone listening, I appreciate you. And we will see you next time on Not Ready Yet, Curating Conversations for the Aging Journey. Thanks for joining me on Not Ready Yet, Curating Conversations for the Aging Journey. If something in this episode gave you clarity or the courage to start an important conversation, or offered a new way to look at things, I hope you'll share it with someone who might need the same encouragement. Remember, navigating aging isn't something we have to do alone or in crisis. With love, logic, and the right tools, we can face what's next with confidence and connection. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. It helps others find the show. And just a quick note, the information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for medical, psychiatric, legal, or other professional advice. Always consult a qualified professional for guidance tailored to your unique situation. This is Lisa Harper, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.